Okay, out there in Marveland, face front, this is Stan Lee speaking. You've probably never heard a record like this before because no one would be nutty enough to make one with a bunch of offbeat artists, so anything is liable to happen.
Hey, who made you a disc jockey, Lee?
Well, Jolly Jack Kirby, say a few words to the fans, Jackson.
Okay, a few words.
Look, pal, I'll take care of the humor around here.
You've been using the same gags over and over for years.
Well, you can't accuse me of being fickle, can you? By the way, Jack, the readers have been complaining about Sue's hairdo again.
What am I supposed to do? Be a hairdresser? Next time I'll draw her bald-headed.
Boy, I'm glad we caught you when you were in a good mood.
Oh, Stan, do you have a few minutes?
For our fabulous Gal Friday? Sure. Say hello to the fans, Flo Steinberg.
Hello, fans. It's very nice to meet you. As Marvel's corresponding secretary, I feel as though I know most of you from your letters. By the way, Saul Brodsky wants to say a few words.
Saul Brodsky? Who's he?
Stan, the fans know you have a bad memory by all the mistakes you make, but this is ridiculous. He's been your associate for years.
Really? We ought to start paying him one of these days.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. And how come I don't get my name plastered all over the mags like you do?
Because I can't spell it, that's why.
Well, as long as you've got a good reason.
Hey, what's all that commotion out there, Saul?
Why, it's Shy Steve Ditko. He heard you're making a record and he's got mic fright. Whoops, there he goes.
Out the window again? You know, I'm beginning to think he is Spider-Man.
You mean he isn't?
Who said that?
Just that lovable old letter of me.
It's adorable Artie Simic. What brought you here?
The subway.
Oh, well, ask a bonehead question, Flo.
Stan, Sam Rosen is on the phone.
How are the letterer? My competitor?
Just for fun, Artie, you talk to him.
Hi, Sam. This is Artie. How's it going, pal?
Just great, Artie. I sure admire your lettering.
I admire yours too, Sam. I think you're tops.
Thanks. Well, nice talking to you.
The pleasure was all mine.
I never could stand that guy.
Well, that's our Artie. Just imagine what Sam is saying about him now. Well, let's see who else we can get on this record.
How about Chick Stone?
Okay. Hi, Chick. How's Tricks?
Fine, Stan. I'm reading the latest story. It's great. What a thriller.
Now, that's what we like to hear, Chick. Which one of our comics is it?
Who's reading a comic? This is a novel about James Bond. I can't wait to finish it.
Well, we're going to miss Chick around here.
Oh, look who just came in. Kid Daredevil himself, Wally Wood.
Is that a tape recorder, Flo? You know I'm afraid to talk into these machines. I can never think of anything to say. I'm not a big talker. I shut up like a clam. I get struck dumb. My mind goes blank.
Okay. Forget it. Boy, I'd hate to hear you when you feel like talking.
Stan, Dick Ears is on the phone.
Let's surprise him.
Hi, Dick. We have a recorder playing, and you're talking to millions of people right now.
You some kind of nut or something? I just want to tell you I want a raise.
Dick, don't you understand? People are listening. You're talking to the whole world.
I always knew you'd crack someday, Lee. Just my luck, it had to happen when I asked you for some more dough. Well, I'm going back to Sergeant Fury. Goodbye.
Another phone call for you, Stan.
Oh, not anymore. I'm getting an earache.
But it's Don Heck.
The idol of the Iron Man fans? The ace of the Avengers? Hi, Don. What's doing?
Stan, I was just wondering, wasn't I supposed to draw Iron Man last week?
Sure. Why do you ask?
So how come you mailed me a Patsy Walker script?
Yipe! Did I do that? That's awful.
Oh, well, don't worry. I'll send it back to you.
That's not why I'm worried. I must have sent your script to Al Hartley. I can just imagine Iron Man looking like Patsy Walker this issue. Okay, talk to you later, Don.
Don't worry about it, Stan. Don't you remember that Al Hartley used to draw adventure strips? It may not be too bad.
Well, look who's here. Stan G., our demon colorer. I've been meaning to talk to you, Stan. When are you going to remember it's the Hulk who has green skin, not Captain America?
Gee whiz, the guy can't remember everything. Anyway, I had to tell you what MMMS meant last week, and you're the guy who made it up.
But when I forget something, it's different.
Yeah, it's worse.
Stan, this is the most confused record I ever heard.
Great, Sol. Just what we want. If it were anything else, it wouldn't be the nutty Marvel bullpen.
Gosh, we don't have time for George Bell and Vince Coletta and Larry Lieber and Bob Powell and...
That's great. Now, if we ever form another club, we'll have something new to offer. Voices that haven't been heard yet.
Enough said, Sol. Now, let's all get back to work in the bullpen. And as for you, marvelous Merry Marchers, welcome from all of us to all of you. If you want to know how glad we are to have you with us, just you listen. Okay, let 'em hear it, gang.
Whoa!
Face front, true believers. You're listening to the Marvel Saga, Episode 6. I'm Nicholas Prom.
And I'm Jerry McMullen. I am one of the co-hosts of the Worst Comic Podcast Ever, and Nicholas is one of the co-hosts of Comic Reflections. And Marvel Saga is our joint venture between the two of us, where we are looking at the 1985-86 Marvel series that was trying to put the entire Marvel universe history in chronological order. So we're up to issue 6. This is episode number 6. And we are going to be looking at, among others, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, Thor, and the introduction of Iron Man.
Yes, some really key stuff happening in this issue. Marvel Saga number 6 was cover dated May of 1986, but according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, it hit the stands February 11th, 1986. We have got a great wraparound cover penciled by Brent Anderson, who of course went on to be the penciler on Astro City.
Yes.
And is still the penciler on that book. It's great. Mm-hmm. The cover was inked by Jolton Joe Sinnott, who inked more issues of the Fantastic Four than anyone ever. I think he had close to a 20-year uninterrupted run on the book.
Right. Yeah.
Which is pretty fantastic. I could be a little wrong. There are probably some fill-ins here and there, but
for the most part, I mean, it was uninterrupted.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is Joe is still active. He still goes to cons and makes appearances, and he's, I want to say, 91, 92 now. And
yeah.
Still going strong.
He's great, and I hope maybe he'll be at Heroes Con next year. Maybe.
Yeah.
Which is
will
when
I be at Heroes Con.
Oh, you're going to be at Heroes Con next year?
No, I'm asking if you will be.
That is my plan. I wanted to go this year, but the wasn't right with money and career.
Sure.
But a lot of our friends in the podcasting and blogging community are there, and I really want to go for Heroes Con 2018. The day we're recording this is I think the last day of that particular con for 2017.
Correct. And I know our friends, the Sutherlands, are there.
Yes.
Darren and Ruth, and they've been hanging out quite a bit with Ron Randall.
As they do.
Your neighborhood, your neck of the woods.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny, I met Ron about the same time that I met Darren and Ruth, although he's at all our cons out here in Portland. I hadn't met him until Rose City this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you read the editorial from Danny Fingeroth for this issue?
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, he's talking about chatting with Walt Simonson, who of course was working on Thor at the time during that classic run.
Yeah.
Also, there's a podcast that's going on right now that's covering that whole run. It's called Thor: The Lightning and the Storm.
Nice.
And it's Miles Stokes from Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men is one of the hosts of that show. This show is terrific. So I would highly encourage people to check that show out. They're covering the whole Simonson run.
Nice.
That
to me, I mean, it may be sacrilege at times to say that anything is better than like the Lee Kirby run or something, but to me, the Simonson run is the defining run of Thor. And we'll see, within this issue of Marvel Saga, as well as some of the others that we've looked at or will be looking at, a lot of what Simonson did on that book really shaped the origin story of Thor and was included within this Marvel Saga series.
Yeah. Well, the 1980s is a really special time, I think, at Marvel. I think a lot of their properties are enjoying their second great runs. You have, I love Silver Age Daredevil, but of course it's hard not to think of the 80s and Frank Miller's Daredevil. I'm a Lee and Kirby Fantastic Four guy, but boy, is that John Byrne run spectacular and very important.
And what Chris Claremont was doing on X-Men was just blowing everything away from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the 60s and 70s is still my favorite X-Men stuff, but
in terms of sales,
it was huge. It
wasn't a bigger book at Marvel at that time.
Very true, and I think it's such an important series, and especially an important time for that series. So I don't mean to dog it. It's just not my very favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a curmudgeon. Like anybody who joins the X-Men after Kitty Pryde, I kind of don't care.
Sure.
But that is my own prejudice.
Yeah.
There's definitely still great stuff like The Fall of the Mutants and Inferno. Like, wow.
Yeah. And even looking at some of the other books, Amazing Spider-Man, Roger Stern was doing a lot of brilliant work. Whether it was Amazing Spider-Man or Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. I mean, he was letting those books go.
Yeah, and Mantlo was doing great things on Spectacular as well. And Bill Mantlo, of course, was doing great things with Rom and the Hulk and acceptable things with the Micronauts. I'm just not crazy about that book, but yeah. But getting back to the editorial, Danny's talking about he'd been chatting with Simonson, and Simonson did some original art for this issue.
Okay.
And was talking about like bringing a very obscure Thor villain back from the Silver Age back into the current run that he was working on, which I thought was kind of neat, also.
Yeah.
But anyway, this issue, Book 6, Love, Hate, and Sacrifice, and we begin this issue concluding the bit with Iceman. Not discovering his powers, but revealing them to the world dramatically.
Manifesting them for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had been on a date. The hoodlums or bullies or what have you came along, tried to break it up. And that's when his ice powers generated. He froze a guy, and of course, everyone's more scared of him than now they are of the bullies. And he goes running home and needs his parents' help, and it's been interesting because over the years, Iceman's parents really haven't embraced his powers. They kind of want him to hide his abilities, hide his powers, pretend he doesn't have it, go to work as an accountant, live a simple life. Don't be this adventurer. And I think we see a little bit here, but later writers would further develop that as,
Yeah.
And it kind of generated some of the storylines regarding mutants, that families might be embarrassed to have a mutant in their family.
Right. And I feel that kind of reads or rings true to how people are or would be, at least some people, about it. So I think that there's something genuine about that. Although his folks kind of they kind of feel like the Kents from Man of Steel. Like, who wrote this book? Zack Snyder? Or David S. Goyer, rather. But all kidding aside, I think it works. And certainly as the impetus for him needing to leave home to join the X-Men, hey, cool.
Yeah. Of course, he was followed home, so you got an angry mob of people. They're just missing the pitchforks and the torches here. But there's an angry mob outside the house, and Bobby's dad tries to defuse them, and he's trying to protect his son, but they really want him, and they end up taking Bobby into jail because you just don't freeze people like that.
Right. Some really enjoyable art by I think George Tuska here, who's really underrated. I think he kind of gets dogged quite a bit, but gosh, I just remember his Golden Age stuff is so gorgeous. Definitely more workmanlike in the 70s, but it's just like he was getting old. He was putting out a lot of stuff during that time. He was not suffering for work, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. There's so many of those Marvel artists that, once he got past Kirby and Ditko, there were so many artists that were brought in that were encouraged to follow the style or the format set by Kirby, and so they would do very Kirby-esque work, whether it was, Tuska, Don Heck, Arnold Drake.
Yeah.
There you can see touches of Kirby in this, but so much that I think also carries over from the inker on the books.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I like the idea of artists doing their own thing and having their own style, but having the mandate to like try to be like Kirby, it really helps develop the not just the house style, but the house feel of that Kirby kinetic energy, punch kind of stuff. Certain artists are kind of like middle of the road, but put them on the right project, and I end up loving them. Like, I'm not a big Don Heck guy, but I love his Avengers run. Mm-hmm. Not a big Mike Sikowski guy, but I love his Wonder Woman run.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes the right project for an artist to really shine.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go ahead and correct myself, because I'm sure there's people listening out screaming. Arnold Drake was a writer, not an artist. And
yeah. I was going to say, Arnold Drake wrote the Doom Patrol.
Yeah. Drake took over Edsman, writing Edsman there for a while.
See, that's wild.
And I thought wasn't it Werner Roth that took over the art duties after Kirby?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Werner Roth stuff. I think he's better known as a romance comics guy, so he tends to be kind of obscured in comics history, but I think it's unfair. His line work and stuff is really nice looking, and for a teenage drama book that happens to have people in tights, I think the transition from romance to superheroes is pretty smooth,
Well, Bobby's in jail, and of course it makes the newspapers up in New York State, where Xavier and Cyclops read about it.
Yeah.
The next day, apparently, or soon thereafter. And so they send Cyclops to go break him out of jail.
Wow.
That's exactly the kind of human mutant relations we want to build up.
I didn't even think about that stuff. I also didn't think about the time frame. I'm like, some things you just take as read in comics and don't even stop and like, oh wait, yeah, like they found out the next day.
Yeah. Having worked at a newspaper, word doesn't get out that quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
for something like this, I don't know that it would have hit the wires that quickly. So
yeah, but it's just so funny in the compressed storytelling of pre-event book comics. It's so wild, the things that we just kind of don't zero in on. Like, wait a second, that.
Yeah. Looks like just finally got Warner Roth pulled up. He did the X-Men between Kirby and Neil Adams.
That's right.
So he went from issue like 23 up to issue 57.
That's right. And then there's like an issue or two by Steranko in there, and I know one by a very young Barry Smith. Yeah. It's the one where they fight Blastar, the living bomb burst, and it was reprinted in one of those mini comics, those Halloween mini comics in the 80s.
Yeah.
And to look at it, you'd think it was Kirby. I mean, it was just uncanny.
Mm-hmm.
Pun intended, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway, not only does Cyclops break out Iceman, they get into the classic Marvel Comics fights.
Yeah. Because, even though I'm here to help you, we've got to fight it out first to make sure we know what each other can do.
Well,
and then when we go to fight the actual villains of the story, we can work together.
Yeah, but I think it works. The fight works as a plot element because Bobby wants to stand trial. He's too naive to realize he's not going to get a fair trial.
Yeah.
And so I think that the conflict generated there is fairly natural, or it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we get some really wonderful panels, like Bobby kind of encases Cyclops in ice. Of course, he busts out of that and gives him the old sock on the jaw. Like Captain America would be proud of this sock on the jaw. That's a great punch.
They eventually come to their senses and realize that they're not going to defeat one or the other, and that they kind of need to work together because all the normal humans are coming up around them with guns and such. And,
yeah. And they get captured, and they're going to be lynched by this mob.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, Lee was really using this book as a metaphor for the race events going on in the 1960s in that time. And, the mutants were an allegory, whether it's, blacks or other colored people, just trying to, this was his way to kind of explain, hey, we're all one group of people. We may just look different from time to time. And using nooses is a pretty clear-cut example of that message that he was trying to get across.
Right, and good on him for doing it. It's important. In comics, it's like they lack subtlety, and that's fine, because I think you can get across messages that maybe polite or more accepted media would get shot down with. You might not see a story quite like this on television, or certainly not in animation at the time.
One of our loyal listeners is a friend of the show, Carl Smith.
Oh, yeah, Carl. Yeah.
Yeah. Earlier
hey, Carl.
This week, he was commenting, hi, Carl, about Peanuts and how the character of Franklin, other than being the token African-American character, did nothing in the cartoons or the comic strip.
Oh, yeah.
So much of that was, maybe that's pressure coming down from the TV networks that were producing the cartoons that, we'll let you have the character in the background, but, at that time on TV, there weren't a lot of, say, black shows or black characters on the white shows. I mean, that's right. That was the nature of network TV at that point. And, for comics, which were probably not given as close a judging eye, it was easy to put black characters into the backgrounds of comics and make it acceptable to see them, so that when it was time to start introducing black characters, it was more easily accepted by the comic book reading audience.
Definitely. I think comics as a progressive force is such a significant one. Mm-hmm. And, when it comes to representation in media, I think the first slow step to change and to, having these characters around is just, it seems minimal, but like just showing that they exist, even as a background character, is an important step. And then, as you said, we can gradually move them in, and it becomes not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it sucks that progress has to be so slow, but I'd rather that it happened that way than not at all.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're both painfully aware that we are very white men having this discussion. And if anyone that's listening wants to add in their voice, we would love to hear that.
Absolutely.
This is not a discussion that just two white men should be having. So.
Well, right. I mean, but it's just like, you and I both are college educated, mm-hmm. and, you get to college, and, I mean, hopefully you started learning about these things in life before that, but I think college is such an experience where you break out of that, your own insular group, and you get to know people who come from different backgrounds, who aren't like you, and trails off because I don't know exactly what my point is, but it's the start of a better understanding of society and trying to figure out what you can do to be better about these kinds of issues. We come from a position of power and privilege, and recognizing that that's messed up, that comes with an impotence of like, well, crap, this is terrible, but what can I do about it other than actively voice, my displeasure with the way society has been put together that way. I don't have all my words today. I'm sorry.
I mean, just because it's always been done this way in the past doesn't mean that it needs to be done that way going forward.
Right.
You need to be able to embrace change and move forward to find the best solutions.
Yeah. I'm all for an equitable way of living that benefits everyone. So, yay.
Well, back to the lynching.
Yeah.
Awkward transition. No, we see these guys. They're getting ready to tie up both Cyclops and Iceman, and that's when Xavier finally shows up and uses his mental powers to stop the men from doing that. Gives Cyclops and Iceman time to make their escape, and they eventually work their way back to Westchester, to the mansion, and Bobby is invited to join the school which only apparently consists of Cyclops at this point.
Right.
But Bobby becomes officially the second X-Men.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun group of characters. But so we'll move on to a different stalwart group of Marvel heroes, the Fantastic Four.
Yes. And once again, we see Human Torch and the Thing are fighting, which is pretty common occurrence in those early issues.
Boy, is it. They are squabbling like nobody's business in practically every issue.
Yeah. And I think that was some of the charm of the Fantastic Four, is that they weren't all best friends like you saw in the Justice League.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I love the Justice League, and I like seeing the peaceful cooperation that they seem to have so often. But it's nice to see the other side of that. What I love that even in just the genre of superheroes in the 1960s, there's so much variety of tone and characterization between the two major publishers, and I enjoy that.
Yeah,
a lot.
In the Fantastic Four, again, Ben is going to huff off in a storm.
Leaving a huff.
Got to watch how you use the word storm in this book, because there's a couple of people named Storm.
Yeah.
And Sue and Thing are outside, and they see a man climbing one of the bridges, literally like climbing up the support cables. And it turns out that this man is being controlled by the Puppet Master.
Yeah.
It's his first appearance.
Yeah. And boy, is he creepy looking.
Yeah. Yeah. His head looks oversized. It's completely bald. It almost looks like a prototype for Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Yikes! Yeah.
With the crazy eyes and the that awkward mouth that doesn't know how to smile or frown or anything. It's open, showing teeth all the time.
Yeah, it's like he looks like somebody gave him a Chelsea smile. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
A Chelsea smile is when somebody like slits your cheeks open.
Okay.
There are victims of that who will they'll have it sewed back, but then you'll have like a major scar, and you'll have like sometimes nerve damage and issues with facial expression, control.
Okay.
It's pretty awful.
Yeah. So we get a flashback scene, and this was actually in a Marvel team-up issue from the 1970s where...
Yeah, drawn by Gil Kane.
I know. It was a nice treat to see Gil Kane's art in a Marvel book here.
Yeah.
Philip Masters, he's one of those guys where everything has kind of gone wrong in life, He lost out on the girl of his dreams to his business partner. He's not the success in business like he wants to be. He's working for someone else. He's never the one completely in charge. He develops. They get this vat of radioactive clay, and he realizes, that there's something that he can do with this, and he takes out his partner.
Yeah. And marries his wife, adopts the daughter Alicia. Alicia was blinded in the explosion that killed his business partner. I forgot the name. Jacob Reese. Yeah.
Yep.
But anywho, then the wife dies, and so Philip and Alicia are alone.
Quite honestly, at this point, she still loves her stepdad. I mean,
yeah, and I've always
knowing him, and
I've always thought that was so sweet. Even though he's awful, she recognizes that he did take care of her.
Yeah,
he did love her. This kind of messy stuff is one of my favorite, or messy emotional relationship stuff is some of my favorite stuff in comics.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but I like it.
So Masters has realized that this radioactive clay, if he actually shapes it into like a known person or something, he can mentally take control of that person. And so that's what he was doing when he made the clay look like the guy that was climbing up the bridge. And so now he takes the clay and models it into a figure of Ben Grimm the Thing, and takes control of Ben's mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that he doesn't have some vendetta against the Fantastic Four. They haven't done anything to him. He's just out for power, and they're getting in his way.
Yeah, being under the control of the Puppet Master, he sends Ben Grimm in to attack the Fantastic Four, taking out the team until one of those fluke instances that happened a lot in the early years of the Fantastic Four, he turns back into Ben Grimm.
Oh.
And Masters loses control of him because he's in his Ben Grimm human form, not the Thing form.
Right.
So,
interesting to note that a few minutes later, Ben reverts back into the Thing, but Masters' control is already broken.
And it's at that point when he is still in his Ben Grimm human form that he and Alicia kind of really meet, and you maybe see what could be the first steps into what could be a potential romance there.
Yeah.
The way that she's cradling his head and kind of feels as he transitions back. And, that's always been Ben's thing, is that, I'm this big, lumpy, rocky guy. No one can love me. I'm never going to have what all my other friends have. And it's one of those storylines that gets used over and over in the book over the years.
Yeah. I always loved the love story between he and Alicia. I think it's terrific. And the anguish that he feels, like he wants to be human, but she loves him as the Thing.
Yeah. As an artist, she's a sculptress. I mean, she can see the beauty in him without him being that cover model or hunky guy. I mean, she loves him for who he is, not what he looks like.
Yeah, and that's pretty powerful stuff, man. It's kind of simple because it's comics, but I think that's an important theme and an important lesson in life. Alicia stumbles upon what her stepfather is doing. He's controlling people with puppets.
Yeah.
And in a struggle with him, because he's made a puppet of, like a dumbass, he makes a puppet of himself, like as a king. And the puppet gets tossed out the window, and so does he. Or it gets tossed to the floor, and then he falls out the window.
Yeah. And they think it's the end of the Puppet Master, but, no good villain's going to leave this quickly.
Right.
We will see the Puppet Master come back for years and years. And over the years, he'll get more aggressive as far as targeting the Fantastic Four specifically, because he kind of used them for causing the strain on his relationship with Alicia, even though he's really the cause of the strain.
Right.
But this is not the last that we'll ever see of him.
Right. So we're going to cut over to the Mighty Thor.
Yes.
He's helping some army guys out with a bomb test. What's this bomb? The
C-bomb.
The cobalt bomb. Yeah. You know, just another bomb.
You know, it's like, let's take the periodic table, let's pick a random element, and put the word bomb behind it.
I gotta say, the cobalt bomb sounds awesome, though.
I would buy that, you know. I could see that being a real thing, you know?
I don't know if he's been introduced yet, but there was also that the X-Men villain, the Cobalt Man.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, who was just like, let's have an evil Iron Man fight the X-Men.
Yeah.
That character I thought was cool. You know, he looked like the classic Iron Man, but in like that black armor. Neat.
Yeah. So it appears that they're like out in the desert, maybe close to where the Hulk's at from the looks of it.
Yeah.
No sign of the green guy. And out of nowhere, an alien appears to take the cobalt bomb.
Well, not an alien, a time traveler.
Time traveler.
From the future. It's Zarko, the Tomorrow Man.
Aha.
A criminal from the future who, this is almost, except for the bomb part, this guy, it reminds me of the first villain, the Silver Age Flash-faced. You know the guy I'm talking about?
I thought it was the turtle.
Oh, it's in that same issue. Sorry.
Okay.
Not the Turtle Man, but it's another bald guy from the future with technology. And it's killing me. I can't remember this guy's name. He did come back. He was a recurring foe.
Okay.
Maybe it'll come back to me. But Zarko the Tomorrow Man, I think, shares some heritage with that guy.
All right.
The Zarko steals the bomb and goes back to the future with it, and then Thor, who hasn't remembered how to travel time yet, because this is pretty early in his career, his resurrected career, he petitions Odin for the power and the knowledge of how to do that so he can track down Zarko. And then we get into Odin answers his summons and grants him the power to do this, and then we get some great Asgardian origin stuff of Odin with some terrific. We got Kirby and I feel like and Simonson.
Yes.
And I think this is that original Simonson art that was appeared in this issue before it did in any Thor issue.
I know, looking at the notes for this issue, I mean, they used art from Thor number 349, which was right in the middle of the Ragnarok storyline.
Oh, okay.
And did. And that's where we're getting like the Surtur panels from.
Okay. So maybe it's he drew those and Fingeroth and Sanderson use these pages kind of coincidentally with their publication in the Thor title.
Yep.
Oh.
Just to answer your earlier question, the Flash fought the villain Maz-Clan. That was the time traveler.
Maz-Clan? Is that it? Or Mazden, yeah. I thought.
Maybe I need my glasses on.
Maybe
yes, Mazden.
Yeah, thank you. I just couldn't remember. But he and the Tomorrow Man in concept and look are very, very similar.
Okay.
Thank you for indulging me. I also remember I know we're going to talk about this Odin origin stuff, which is great, but I remember a story in Marvel Team Up where Spidey and the Inhumans fought Zarko the Tomorrow Man and Kang the Conqueror. You've covered those on Essential Showcase, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank as to which ones. I'm going to be looking that up here.
Okay. So then we segue into the long and complicated origin of Odin, which it was cool, but I'm perfectly happy to skip.
The problem with so much of this, and especially with Odin in particular, is that the story constantly evolves.
Yeah.
And, this is the story as we know it at that time in the 1980s. It has since evolved more. Like any stories of the gods, whether it's Norse or Greek or Roman, a lot of times it involves parents killing their kids killing their parents, siblings killing each other. And there's a lot of that going on through these pages.
Yes.
But the end result is Odin comes out as the ruler of Asgard.
Yay!
He's the keeper of Surtur's sword that's kind of keeping Surtur locked away until Ragnarok occurs.
Yeah.
Which was kind of occurring when this was all going on. But and Odin is the all-powerful. I mean, we touched on earlier, Thor needs to figure out a way to travel in time. Odin's that powerful, he can help make that happen.
Yeah. Very, very handy to have him as your dad. Like, can I borrow the keys to the car, Dad? Can you give me the power to travel time, Dad? Pretty great. Pretty great. But yes, so Thor gets those powers. Yay.
Yeah.
And he pursues Zarko through time.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
And it's simply a matter of just tossing your hammer around, spinning in a circle, and voila, you're in the future.
Yeah. So Zarko stole this bomb from the 20th century so he could try and use it to, gain power in the future. Like, there are no bombs or more technologically advanced stuff then.
Or you couldn't craft one yourself.
Yeah, you do have a time machine. You couldn't come up with nuclear fission? Really?
Mm-hmm. That's always been the thing that got me is, if you're a time traveler and you can go anywhere in time, why not go to the future and get future tech? Why are you going into the past to get ancient history tech?
Yeah, that seems really weird. Yeah, go get future stuff, then come back to your time or an earlier time and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Kang is better than Zarko.
Zarko and Thor go at it. Thor catches the bomb from detonating and returns it back to its proper time, and then leaves Zarko there for the authorities to take into custody. And as we've touched on, Zarko will come back over and over again because no good villain can lie dormant. So
I'll say no acceptably useful villain can lie dormant. This guy, I wouldn't call him a great villain. But he's memorable.
You made mention of the story with Spider-Man and the Inhumans. We looked that up. That was Marvel Team Up 9 through 11. So that was probably 72, 73 time frame.
Cool.
So from Thor, we're going to move over to Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Henry Pym, still operating as Ant-Man. And now he is fighting the Protector.
That's a weird villain weird name for a villain.
Yeah. And basically he's running
a protection scheme.
Racket scheme, a protection, yeah.
So I get the name, but it doesn't make sense for a bad guy.
Yeah.
Maybe not Stan's finest hour.
And basically he's got a weapon that will kind of disintegrate or break down anything that it comes in contact with, and Ant-Man quickly puts them out. I mean, I'm sure there's a full-length issue here, but for this particular Marvel Saga, Ant-Man's getting 6 panels in this book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is the smallest hero, so he gets the smallest portion of comic book time. The irony is not lost on me here. Is that what irony is? I don't know. But it's fitting, I guess. But then we cut over to one Tony Stark.
Yes.
Billionaire, playboy, inventor, philanthropist, etc., etc.
The son of Howard and Marie Stark.
Yes.
Howard made his money with munitions, creating weapons to sell to the military. And when we first meet Tony Stark, he's in the family business. He's creating weapons himself and selling them to the government. And in this particular instance, he has traveled to Southeast Asia to help demonstrate some of his latest weapons to the U.S. troops that are over there.
Yeah. But then, of course, he gets caught by commies.
Yeah.
And there's a bomb explosion. He gets hit with some shrapnel, and he's taken prisoner.
Yes. And he's held with this old inventor, Professor Jensen.
Yeah. Who was a great physicist, apparently.
Mm-hmm. And they realize that whatever they do, the communist government army is just going to take from them and use as a weapon against the U.S. troops.
Yeah. So Tony's problem is twofold. He doesn't want to make a weapon for the commies, but he has no choice. And he's going to die if he doesn't come up with a way to keep the shrapnel from entering his heart.
Yes.
So, what to do?
Yeah. Well, let's create a life-saving suit. It's going to be a suit that will have, I believe it was an electromagnet that was in the chest plate that kind of kept the pieces from traveling to his heart.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Comic book sense.
Yeah. And we'll just make it a full battle armor, and we'll put some gadgets on there, and let's see what we can do.
Yeah. So, the suit isn't quite ready, and the commies are coming. Mm-hmm. Professor Jensen runs out into the hallway acting crazy and gets shot and killed. He's buying Tony time for the suit to charge up. So we leave off with Professor Jensen having sacrificed himself and Tony swearing vengeance.
Yep.
And
as all good heroes do.
Well, to avenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean it in the positive sense, if sure. That can be positive. But you know what I'm saying. There's a right way to do that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's where the issue closes off. And boy, we've got some fun in store for next time. Do you want to talk about that, Jerry?
Yeah. So for the next issue, we are going to get Iron Man's revenge, as well as his first side-by-side adventure with James Rhodes, who would become the second Iron Man.
Yep. One Tony got too wasted to keep going as Iron Man.
We are also going to meet the one man that has foiled Peter Parker and Spider-Man every chance he can, J. Jonah Jameson.
Yes.
We're going to meet Thor's stepbrother Loki and get in on his great secret. We're going to find out about a change in the life of the Hulk, plus more Human Torch, Ant-Man, the origin of Egghead.
Yeah. Oh boy. That's fun. You know, Disney XD has got a bunch of Ant-Man shorts coming out.
Yes.
And the first 3 are out and available for streaming, and one of them has Egghead in it.
Nice.
So
I always liked the Egghead character.
He's kind of fun. I like him more than I should.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he got together like with the Emissaries of Evil, that was kind of a fun supervillain group. I love supervillain groups. So yeah.
When I first got really deep into reading comics as a hobby, where I was actively looking for the comics month to month, one of the first comments I got was Avengers 228, 229, which was the start of the trial of Henry Pym.
Yeah.
And we find out that Egghead was behind a lot of that, and that kind of cemented into my mind what a cool villain Egghead was, and it's always liked him ever since. And,
I'm curious if there's ever any interaction between Egghead and the other major Henry Pym nemesis, Ultron. If they've ever crossed paths. I mean, Egghead would be useless to Ultron.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Egghead would be smart just to stay clear of him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe there's a story.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else here?
I think I'm pretty good, Jerry. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to check out this show on either Jerry's feed for the worst comic podcast ever, or on mine for Comic Reflections.
Yep.
On iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Where else is WCPE available, Jerry?
We're working on that. On the very near future, you're going to be able to find us on every channel possible.
Yay! Cool. Until next time, gang. Excelsior!
Stand a little straighter, walk a little prouder, be an innovator, laugh a little louder, go forever greater, we can show you how to, and when will you be then? You belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society. If you growl, if you groan, with the dour, sour outlook, if you howl, if you moan, you can lose your sour throat from keeping trim and in step with the vim and outstep of the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Be an early riser,
strive to be ambitious,
speak a little wiser,
try to be judicious,
be a good advisor,
never ever vicious.
and when
Will you be then?
Face front! Lift your head! You're on the winning team!
You belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society. If you growl, if you groan, and your score is merely zero, do not howl, do not moan. You can be a superhero marching right along to the fighting song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society. Stand a little straighter, walk a little prouder, be an innovator, laugh a little louder, grow forever greater, we can show you how to